Hey, and welcome to the Solid Verbal. Now would be a perfect time to consider subscribing. Yeah, that little subscribe button for year-round premium college football content. That's it. Here's the video. Enjoy. Subscribe.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal. Boys and girls, my name is Ty Hillenbrand, that fine gentleman over there, the one, the only, always the incomparable, today wearing green. Dan Rubenstein. Sir, is that Oregon green? Is that what that is?
It's Bucky's green, Ty. The rest stop of choice of discerning drivers where available. Largely Texas, but now outside of the state of Texas. I am a little bit disappointed in you for not simply starting out the show by saying Kansas, 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 James, Madison, Madison. James Madison, 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 James Madison, Madison. The only FBS team in the history of football to never lose an FBS game, Ty. Come on.
Correct. That is correct. We've got all sorts of James Madison and state of Kansas goodness that we're going to discuss. This episode, all of our episodes, driven by our good friends over at Geico. Many folks are watching this live on verballers.com, where you can go to further support the show if you are ever so inclined and get access to bonus perks. We will talk about our Verballer Top 10, one of those perks here momentarily. It was a crazy week. We had various names that we decided on when we did our preview. I went with Supposition Saturday. You went with Serpentine Saturday. In hindsight, maybe it was like a step back, you're getting kind of close Saturday, right? It was.
Yeah.
I looked at all of the action, as I typically do bright and early on a Sunday morning, and you do as well. And I was thinking, holy crap, how are we going to get through all of this? Because typically, you'll group your headliners at the top, and then you'll kind of organize by conference and organize the conferences by which had the most meaningful action. They all had meaningful action this week. Every conference had close games. Every conference had storylines that came out of week 4. And so we're going to do our best here to not make this a 2-hour show, but no promises.
One of my favorite moments yesterday was much more of a collective when you look at big picture, what week 4 actually meant implication-wise. You going 2-3 with your 5 picks, Ty? Woof, Ty. Woof. Yeah. What does that say about you moving forward? You know what it says? It says the universe just evens out and everybody's about 50, give or take 48, 52, something like that. But otherwise, long day, great day, unexpected day, which is all to say a perfect college football day for some of us.
For some of us, not for others.
Yeah.
Let's have a listen to your week 4 reverbs to put a bow on week 4.
As a Colorado State fan, I've learned we are winless against all forms of states. We played a real state and lost in Washington State. We played part of a state and lost, Middle Tennessee State. We just got destroyed by a fake state, Sacramento State. And now we're losing to Emotional State because I am very depressed.
Dan, Ty, this is Jack from Connecticut.
It's Brittany from Dallas.
It's Ken from Maryland. I'm a weirdo. I watched Kansas and Duke, and I loved it. Hi, Dan, and Ty this time. Thanks again for picking Iowa State over Baylor. Seems to be really working out for the Bears. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy that crow again this year. Sick 'em Bears.
It's 5:20 in the morning. I'm crushing a victory beer and resisting the urge to run to a barracks full of Marines here in Okinawa, Japan and scream, "Go Tigers." Let's go, Clemson.
I think my toast is burning. Oh no, that's just the Tigers defense. Go Tigers.
All right, we're going to take you live now to Yankee Stadium, where Aaron Judge is in pursuit of Major League history.
Do they stop at bats for other players to watch Wake Forest try to throw a touchdown?
There is nothing more invigorating than watching the Clemson versus Wake Forest game and instead watching Aaron Judge take an at-bat versus the Yankees.
If you're angry about the cut-ins to Aaron Judge at-bats during your college football Saturday, that is your punishment for not watching Duke, Kansas.
Losing to UTEP gives me a minor headache, but that's okay. At least Boise State is in Nebraska.
After taking myself to the ER this morning for heart issues, I want to thank the Notre Dame football team for not inducing any more heart palpitations this afternoon.
I'm wondering if Mizzou and Auburn than watching Iowa recaps for pointers, because I literally cannot think of a more gentlemanly touchdown than the one you fumble away at the goal line.
Just watching this OU K-State game, and I've realized that OU just seems to be addicted to craptastic defenses.
Are we giving Adrian Martinez a dude alert? Texas Tech's coach is named Joey McGuire, right? They should show him the money.
I'm sitting on the back patio, eating beans, cornbread, drinking an ice-cold adult beverage, basking in the pearlescent glow of watching Longhorns take an L back to Austin.
In an unpredictable and changing world, it sure is comforting to know that Texas is back to being Texas.
I am just calling to confirm what we knew to be true all along, which is that MTASU is an elite football institution. Go Blue Raiders.
Has anybody seen the trailer for that creepy movie called Smile that's coming out soon? Crazy thing is, they've already made the sequel. It's just Manny Diaz smiling behind Mario Cristobal for 90 minutes.
Just calling to welcome Cam Ward to Washington State and introduce him to the time-honored tradition of Cougan it. Go Ducks!
Word on the street is that the East Lansing police are looking for a ravenous gopher on the run. They're hoping to charge him with murder.
If you showed Jimbo Fisher a highlight reel of him yelling at his quarterbacks for 10 years, that it might occur to him that he's the common denominator.
Rocky Top, you'll always be home sweet home to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Good old Rocky Top.
Yep.
Rocky Top, Tennessee.
Rocky Top, Tennessee, Dan, by the way, up to number 6 in our latest Verbaler Top 10 poll, which dropped this morning at 9:05 Eastern Time. We had some technical difficulties, i.e. the initial poll left Clemson off.
Hater.
It was not by design. People on Discord were like, the Solid Verbal is an anti-Clemson
hater.
It was an accident. I apologize. Entirely on me. We fixed it. I don't know if everybody had a chance to go out there and vote in it, but I think we had a pretty good enough sample size.
Yeah.
Here is your top 10. Top 5 remains unchanged. No, not so much.
No.
Oklahoma lost. Clemson sneaks back up to number 5. It's Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan. That's your top 5. Tennessee all the way up to 6. USC now 7th. Oklahoma State 8th. Kentucky 9th. And congratulations, Penn State, on your first appearance in the Verbaler Top 10 poll. They creep in at number 10. We appreciate everybody out at verballers.com voting in that poll. Again, you can sign up over at verballers.com if you too would like to vote in next week's poll after week 5. Shout out to our guy Shay for putting together a bangin' reverbs as usual. And we appreciate everybody dialing in at 408 Verbal 1, supporting the show by doing so. And of course, hopefully, offering yourselves a bit of catharsis.
Yeah.
Healing.
That'd be good.
Healing from a rather traumatic week 4, Dan. General takeaways from what we saw.
I don't know. It's just what I said before. It was a wild week 4 in that it was long. There were a number of games that came down to the final seconds, big games that came down to the final seconds, even starting at the top of the day with Wake Forest and Clemson and Aaron Judge really coming down to it.
Can you, as we go through this, I do the host thing and I kind of rattle through the games, but just if need be, can you break in and give me an update on where Aaron Judge stands? We're recording this at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
But just give me a live update on Aaron Judge as we go through here, just in case.
I'm going to give you live updates on Aaron Cruikshank from Rutgers and just what he's up to this morning, recovering from the game. I'll do my best. No, there are no major takeaways in that it was just crazy entertaining. Nobody is really excellent beyond probably Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State. All due respect to the Dukes, America's team of James Madison.
Sure.
Now, college football is true Madison. Sorry, Wisconsin. You got to earn that back. No, it was a fun day for me. It was an extremely fun day for me. And it was, if I could quote the great, it's just a cliche at this point, but I think it was the great John Bon Jovi, New Jersey's own. The more things changed, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Exactly.
Texas, Oklahoma, everywhere.
Yeah. Everywhere.
Washington State. Yeah.
What was the craziest game? What was the craziest game, the most significant game from your standpoint, because again, we could talk ad nauseum about each conference. Really, each conference could be an hour-long show. We're not going to do that to you, but where do you think, as you look back on week 4, the conversation starts from a national significance perspective?
Sure. Probably Tennessee, Florida. Just because of the number of storylines with new coach breaking through, quarterback not breaking through, but now appearing to be a Heisman caliber contender, and Hendon Hooker, Anthony Richardson, finally this season as the full-time starter, really showing his colors as somebody who can lead this team and show composure on the road in a difficult place. The fact that secretly the scariest type of play that could happen almost happened, where a team not only needs an onside kick recovery, but they need to score quickly. They recover it and keep running. And so it's that collective, every organ gets sucked into the bodies of Tennessee fans as they watch that moment unfold. So yeah, that to me was like the Stephon, this game has everything kind of vibe to it. So I'm happy to start there.
38-33 Tennessee wins. Here's a bad gambling beat for you. You didn't even mention that. Tennessee was favored by 10.5 points at kick. They led 38-21, about 8 minutes left in the game. Florida scores a touchdown with about 5 minutes left. They miss the 2-point conversion, makes it an 11-point game. They march the field in the final minute to score a touchdown to complete the vaunted backdoor cover. End up losing this one by 5. Also, as you mentioned, the Gators were not done at that point. They recover an onside kick, a really nice onside kick. You have to remind yourself in that moment that even though he catches it in stride and keeps running, that he can't keep running. You can't advance the onside kick once you recover it.
Right.
But just a beautiful job of the onside kick. There was another one in the Pitt game, which was equally as fun, but for different reasons. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. Florida gets the ball back, 16 seconds left to go, 60 yards with it. The fact that they actually had a shot at this game was impressive, and I think spoke to the level of fight. Billy Napier was like livid on the sidelines after a couple calls. I thought he was going to get tossed from this game. You're right to point out what Anthony Richardson did as well. Anthony Richardson, 515 total yards and 4 touchdowns. I think it's fair to say in a losing effort.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's the Florida side of things. They tried valiantly to get back into this thing. It was too little too late, but you like that fight if you're a Florida fan. And I think you like what you saw out of Anthony Richardson here, the way he led the team. Let's talk about Tennessee, because Tennessee jumped in our poll. Tennessee's going to jump in a lot of polls this week, especially with Oklahoma losing. Tennessee, from my standpoint, at least on offense, is basically all Hendon Hooker. Now, they're a little bit more diversified than a team like Florida because they're able to use Jabari Small, and they've got more weapons, I guess, more proven weapons that they can use to beat you. But this is undeniably Hendon Hooker's team. They're probably going to lose a dumb one along the way, but this team can score reliably. They can score quickly. I think without a shadow of a doubt, that makes the SEC more interesting because they've got Bama, they've got Georgia, they've got Kentucky still on the schedule. Right now, I think they're better than Kentucky. I think they can score with Bama. They're still losing to Georgia, but like this is the kind of team that we had talked about in previews as a complete, at least offense in the SEC East that makes the conversation more interesting. And now on the heels of this win, I'm really excited to see where this team goes moving forward. It feels like Josh Heupel's got this thing going at a pretty good clip, and Tennessee's going to be a force in the SEC, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
No doubt about it, Greg McElroy. I echo everything you said. It can be argued that no single player is more valuable to his team than Hendon Hooker is to Tennessee in this moment after that type of performance. We don't know what Florida fully is or is not, but yeah, you watch that Tennessee team, if you're not going to be excellent, and there's a lot to be desired on defense in specific moments for Tennessee, be super entertaining and dangerous. And it is undeniable that is what Tennessee, as they are currently composed, that's what they are. And so really nice win to come away with that win. They had lost, 16 of 17 heading into the game. And so to have game day there, to have, everybody all checkerboarded out, including the guy with the checkerboard beard.
Oh, yeah. By the way,
what's better than that?
The stadium looked awesome. Neyland Stadium looked awesome with the orange and white checkers. That was so cool.
I've been on the field for this game, and it is an overwhelmingly excellent experience. Like, you are overwhelmed by the situation around you, the environment around you. So very cool of Tennessee, and one of those teams that came into the game with the hype of game day and the hype of expectations, and even in their more down moments. And I really liked watching what Florida was able to do and develop the, Justin Shorter, the Penn State transfer, Ricky Pearsall, the ASU transfer. They made plays. They found open grass. But, yeah, Tennessee ultimately was the answer.
I want to talk about K-State, Oklahoma. This was the big one that, in a weird way, almost was overshadowed by the time it occurred. So much had happened throughout the course of Saturday that Kansas State beating Oklahoma, to me, weirdly, it didn't have the normal amount of gravitas that I would expect. I was just tired from the other action. It was a really busy day of college football.
Yeah.
Kansas State goes to Oklahoma and knocks off the Sooners by a 41-34 score. David Hale, our friend from ESPN, posted an interesting theory on his recap piece this morning. He said every team has lost the week after it has beaten Nebraska. That includes Northwestern.
What did I tell you about the Nebraska infection on the preview show? Why I was picking Kansas against Duke, right? Because Duke had the Northwestern transitive Nebraska infection. Nebraska-litis? Colitis? I don't know. I'll get there. But I'm telling you, there's something real about frostbite. How about frostbite? That's not bad.
The latest victim of our new epidemic in college football. So I think the extremely zoomed out viewpoint on this game is that the Oklahoma defense couldn't stop K-State, particularly Adrian Martinez. Might have been the best game of Adrian Martinez's career. He said as much in his post-game comments. And obviously Deuce Vaughn had a part to play as well. Oklahoma was mistake prone. They had 11 penalties, 5 false starts. The offense was not an issue for them. It's not going to be an issue for them this season. I think we're past that point. That train has left the proverbial station. But the defense in this one, they just didn't really have a great answer for the K-State offense and what they were trying to do. That's not to say either defense was all that great. Both had a fair amount of challenge on their hands here. But the combination of Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn and the way Chris Kleiman chose to use both was ultimately what sunk Oklahoma in this one, Dan. They fell down early. They came back valiantly, but K-State stuck with it and remained successful with their game plan the full way through.
Do we really want to live in a universe in which Kansas State beats Oklahoma? Excuse me, let me take that again. Do we really want to continue to live in a universe where Kansas State continues to often beat Oklahoma? Oh, Brent Venables better than... This is exactly what Lincoln Riley would have done. Cool. Great job, guys. Good luck in the SEC. I am so impressed with the performance of not just Adrian Martinez, but Kansas State as a whole. Impressed with the receivers for sticking with it because they were kind of open in previous weeks, and Adrian Martinez was being pretty conservative with it. Deuce Vaughn continues to be Deuce Vaughn. I mean, that is not a surprise at all. You mentioned the Oklahoma offense was and will continue to be fine. I thought they were a little bit sloppy. I think there's some throws that Dylan Gabriel wants back in some key spots. I mean, obviously they have playmakers, Eric Gray, Marvin Mims. Guys really showed up. For Kansas State to do what they did, and it's not just Adrian Martinez through the air. It was a complete all-purpose performance in big moments with his legs. He went well over 100 yards, right, with his legs?
Yeah, Adrian Martinez had
400 and some odd total yards.
Yeah, it was 382 in total yardage.
Oh, 380.
5 total touchdowns, but 4 of them were on the ground. And he was their leading rusher in terms of yardage.
Unflappable. So this was, if he were to play another year, you would draft a more mature Adrian Martinez in our Fantasy Things show. So yes, came away crazy impressed with Kansas State. Defense came up big when it needed to. And Oklahoma will be just fine. They are a good team who will beat many other teams. But Kansas State, in this type of performance, which is more difficult because they weren't bombing it downfield, they had to continue to move the ball relatively, not slowly, but in smaller chunks. It's a more difficult way of operating. But they pulled it off with Adrian Martinez actually going downfield at least a little bit more than usual, which is a big difference.
Are you back in the K-State bandwagon now? Because you were off like a week ago.
No, not fully. They're just too all over the place. There's too much variance, I think, at this point still with the Kansas State and especially the Adrian Martinez experience. But I could see this being a turning point where they look more consistent. So I'm not fully off, but I'm off the initial optimism I had.
I need more detail on the exact level of involvement Ted Roof has with this defense for Oklahoma.
Okay.
I don't believe he's calling the plays, but I would only feel comfortable in a scenario in which, like Dwight Schrute on Lake Wallenpaupack when they gave him the fake wheel.
Yeah.
That's what we need to be doing with Ted Roof. Like, keep him away from this. I don't care how much wisdom Brent Venables thought he brought to the equation. Ted Roof is Ted Roof is Ted Roof.
So
I've seen the leaky roof. I've seen the leaky roof.
Yeah.
Up close and personal in his work at Penn State. It is not appealing to me, nor should it be to any Oklahoma fans. Brent Venables on his own can fix his defense.
Sure.
He can fix the defense. He will fix the defense. It's what he's good at.
It's also September of his first season. Yeah.
It's also September. He will fix the defense. I'm confident in that, but just keep Ted Roof away, okay?
So the equivalent is what? Ted Roof with a headset on that's just piped in Spotify chill hop playlists. He's like, this is great. This is such a groove.
It's that easy 90s listening playlist you sent me like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Where are we going next?
Let's talk about Clemson Wake Forest. Double overtime, huh? Woo! Woo! A lot of points. A lot of points, a lot of offense. These quarterbacks combined for 708 yards, 11 touchdowns, and no interceptions.
Yeah.
2 points here to commit to memory as Clemson won this one 51-45. First off, any doubt about Wake and their offense? And yeah, there was some turnover, but is there really any reason to doubt Sam Hartman, Dave Clawson, the slow mesh, whatever it is they do?
That's what they do
at this point. They're going to score. They're very good on offense. They're going to score. They proved it against what we think is a pretty good defense, but that brings me to point 2, Clemson's defense.
Yeah.
Bill Connolly asked a question in his column last week about whether we should worry about the Clemson defense. I think after this, the answer is probably yes, right? Like, you did not see Wake Forest scoring 45 points last year against the Clemson defense.
No.
And of course, there was turnover now with Brent Venables coaching at Oklahoma, and they promoted from within. I think there's obviously time for them to get fine on the defensive side of the ball, given all the talent that they have. But teams with efficient passing attacks coming into this game, and this is a Bill thing, I didn't harvest these stats, but coming into this game, 64% of opposing passes were completed against Clemson. They weren't necessarily allowing big chunk plays, but they also weren't getting sacks. So just sort of in like that gray area where they're good enough to not get burnt deep, but they're not good enough to stop their intermediate stuff. And they're not good enough to like blanket guys so that you're preventing incompletions. The success rates allowed on the passing side were really high for the Clemson defense. And it showed in this game. It showed in this game. Sam Hartman's a good quarterback. He was able to pick them apart. Clemson was able to do what it had to in order to win this football game. They got tough yards from Will Shipley. DJU got tough yards. I mean, this was a gritty effort really on both sides of this thing. But, and certainly not to take anything away from Clemson with the win that they got here. This is a tough win for them against a good team. But I just keep coming back to the defense thinking, I thought coming into the year this was going to be a shutdown unit. And at least against the pass, they have not proven so thus far.
Look, Sam Hartman's been there forever. It's an offense custom built for him. It's their playmakers there. It's an ideal situation, quarterback passing game wise, that Wake Forest has at the moment. They do this to pretty much everyone. They didn't do it to Clemson last year. Not a lot of teams, even like Kenny Pickett was held relatively in check against this Clemson defense last year, as was Devin Leary. But I don't know, how many of these guys are you really scared of on Clemson? Like, do you think Malik Cunningham's going to go off? Do you think Devin Leary and the Tim Beck offense is going to suddenly get way better in a big spot? Like, I
we'll
won
find
that
out
game
next
last
week.
year.
Possible monsoon game next week.
Okay, so that's a nice thing for Clemson to have, the monsoon advantage. Dabo is probably undefeated in monsoons, I think. Bring your own guts, etc. So, yes, we can worry about Clemson for all sorts of reasons, the consistency reasons, the offensive stop and stardiness, the corners getting burnt by Wake's receivers, but Wake just might be really good. Yeah. And Clemson might just be, what's the Dabo term? The Roy bus, the rest of y'all. They might, he uses that like in a facetious, dumb, aw shucks kind of way, but they might be getting closer to the rest of y'all. So that's where I stand with Clemson. An incredible win to pull out because Wake is a tough out. To win that game on the road, to absorb what they absorbed. I know Will Shipley didn't do much. He had the long run in the beginning, but then he wasn't really a factor in this game. It was more DJU making plays downfield. The tight end emerged for Clemson. And like, if you're giving up what you give up to Wake in a winning effort, yes, there are questions about the defense. There are questions about the pass rush and the secondary. But what do we say, Ty? Win those clunkers, Ty.
Win your clunkers, yeah.
Win your clunkers. And for whatever narrative you want to choose about Clemson's present and future, winning games better than losing games.
Let's go to another overtime game. Texas Tech 37, Texas 34. This one went to overtime as well. This is a fun game. I would like an apology from you, actually.
For taking Texas Tech amid all of the hate?
I've been beleaguered for my Texas Tech beliefs, really from the jump. It's cruel. It's unjust. And I would just like, if you'd like to shower me with apologies at this point, I can hit pause. I can mute my mic and just allow you to do so.
Who'd you take in this game, Ty?
I took Texas Tech.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I know you took Texas Tech in Ty versus the world. Okay. It was a great win. It was a great win for Texas Tech. You did notice the gumpiness. You didn't necessarily call, I could see Quinn Ewers getting hurt ahead of the Texas Tech game. You didn't call that ahead of the season.
I did not. But I didn't know what Quinn Ewers was before the season.
True.
We didn't know what to expect out of him. Do you remember
Texas Tech without their starting quarterback, to be clear?
Do you remember our old joke about James Franklin, the Missouri
quarterback,
the Missouri
not
quarterback,
the coach,
not the coach?
Casual dress, yeah, and the David Yost "don't move your feet" quarterback coaching system, yeah.
This felt like a casual dress Texas defense, the kind of effort you see when you're watching defenses in the Pro Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it felt watching this. It goes without saying. If you look at the box score, if you watch the game, Texas couldn't get off the field. But Tech really dominated this game in a couple different ways. They executed their game plan in that they kept the ball for 11 more minutes of possession. They had 6 drives of 10 plays or more, including an 18-play drive that went for almost 8 minutes and a touchdown the first time they saw the ball in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
They ran about, and I tried to add this up. I'm not good at math. I'm sure I screwed it up. They ran 98 plays or thereabouts in regulation, 28 of which were either third or fourth down attempts, which means that 70 were not.
Yeah.
So they were really good at staying in front of the chains on first and second downs, which is just a killer for an opposing defense. The Texas defense was on the field a great deal in this game. And that's all to say that Donovan Smith, who you besmirched the name of Donovan Smith by saying he's a backup quarterback, he's a really good quarterback. He looked really good in this game.
Yeah, sort of.
Sort of. He had a command of the offense.
No. He had command. He wasn't going downfield a ton. He wasn't making Texas pay. It was a lot of shorter pickleball-y type stuff in a winning effort. You're right.
A lot of underneath stuff that he had to do. I think I saw their average yards per pass was something like 5.5 or 5.8 yards.
Right.
So no, it wasn't like a downfield threat, Donovan Smith passing attack or anything like that, but he was very confident. We saw him run for some big yards in this game, which is interesting because Donovan Smith is not really known as a runner, but he's got this, I don't know how much of this game you watch, he's got this move where he puts his foot in the ground and makes a hard juke in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Texas fell for it the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
He was using that on short yardage situations to get an extra 2-3 yards. He was really, really good in this entire football game. And I think it all stems from Joey McGuire. We had the reverb saying, pay the man his money, a little bit of a spin off of Jerry Maguire there. But Joey McGuire went into this one saying, F it, we're playing Texas. We're going to go for it on all the fourth downs. And he went for it 8 times, got 6 of them.
Yeah.
That attitude, you could see it. You could see it on the field. Texas Tech with just a really gutty effort here at home to win this one.
Well, it's just the right approach to me. It's the right approach to football when you are a home dog, when there's a lot of emotion there. And if your strength is moving the ball, which is probably where Texas Tech is going to be in the short to medium term, on 4th and 2s, go. On 4th and 3s, go. What are we trying to over strategize for? You want to give Bijan Robinson more opportunities? That's what you want to do with your game at home with a frenzied crowd? No. So I really appreciated the aggression from Texas Tech. And you're right about the Texas defense not being able to get off the field. I actually thought Hudson Card made a bunch of really impressive plays, especially considering he's been beat up. Bijan Robinson sort of weirdly disappeared at times, just in terms of not getting opportunities. But yeah, man, Texas Tech, an incredible performance. The least important of which is, at some point, we're going to have a conversation about Sark sunglasses. The skee-ball ass sunglasses he wears with the orange temples.
They do look like freebies that he got at a convention.
Great with sunglasses. Great with all... They're not great. They're tote bag sunglasses, and we need to move on. That's all.
How much is he getting paid to wear those?
Oh, too much money, probably. No, I think, again, I am confident Texas will continue to improve, despite evidence sometimes to the contrary. Just beware of the September win-loss, which is what that Alabama game was. Just beware of it. Don't look too much into, oh, they lost, but man, they hung with somebody great. Well, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They got up for that game, and they're going to revert to the mean. That's what happens. It's improvement can be a little bit a sharper incline right now because of the portal, but it's gradual. It's gradual, and to expect otherwise because Texas almost beat Alabama. No, it's a week-to-week thing. It's not what you do in your best game in September. What do you look like in your third best game? What do you look like on your 9th best throw of the game? And that's where Adrian Martinez was, by the way. His 9th best throw was way better than his 9th best throw earlier games, earlier seasons, whatever. So still up on Texas long-term, but no, not right now.
By the way, Texas Tech travels to K-State next week in what appears to be a double letdown spot that we're going to have to preview when we do the Week 5 show.
Oh, man. Yeah.
We'll talk more about that. Let's talk about this Miami game. What the hell is going on with Miami?
They hired Mario Cristobal. Okay.
45-31, Middle Tennessee knocks off the Canes. The swagger is bad. Not so much. Not so much. It may be time to update and just slip out the side door with my Miami prediction. The ACC Coastal.
Might be Brett McMurphy picking the Canes as a playoff team.
Might be time to just surreptitiously apply a little whiteout and write in Pitt to win the Coastal. Maybe the whole damn thing. Who knows with the ACC. Rick Stockstill with his quote after the game. It was a butt kicking from the very beginning. Jalen Rivers, the offensive lineman from Miami, says, quote, "We looked at that team. Oh, we're going to win this game. Obviously, we came in unmotivated, and we got punched in the mouth." Middle Tennessee never trailed. They forced turnovers on Miami's first 3 possessions. They got 3 stops on 4th down attempts, scored on passes of 69, 71, and 98 yards. Also, an 89-yarder in there, just as a bit of insult to injury, Dan. Tyler Van Dyke / formerly Dime pulled in favor of Jake Garcia, who came in for Miami and actually gave him a little bit of a spark off the bench. So a lot wrong here with Miami. And I wish I could say this were an isolated incident, but we've seen other cases this year. I forget who Miami played the week before Texas A&M, but it was the same deal there, right? Where it was
Southern Miss, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like a very sluggish start that they were able to rectify in the end. But obviously they weren't able to. Middle Tennessee kept scoring. We kept watching the scoreboard, seeing Middle Tennessee putting up points on the board. So a big win for them. Good for Rick Stockstill. But on the Miami Mario Cristobal side, Dan, oof. Big old oof here.
Yeah, take the positive first. That Middle Tennessee was not scared of Miami from the jump with the turnovers, with getting the ball to speed, like untouched speed, by the way. Let's not just talk about how the Miami defense got gashed by Middle Tennessee, by 5'8", 173-pound receivers, untouched, running tunnel screens or going downfield. I don't know, man. It's September of year 1 of a new coach. There are going to be growing pains across the board unless you have like an internal hire on a playoff caliber system, whatever. And even then, there's just going to be growing pains. Mario Cristobal, not a new coach, though. Tyler Van Dyke, not a new quarterback. A lot of these guys on this Miami team on both sides are not new to college football. Have won ACC games, came in as blue chip type players, had spring, had summer, had fall to figure out how to maximize what they are. This is what Mario Cristobal does to quarterbacks. Justin Herbert, Tyler Shuck, Anthony Brown, Tyler Van Dyke. I think they have a blue chip quarterback in the incoming class, at least as of now. It's you're getting a taste. You're getting a taste, Miami fans. They will be better, but they're going to lose these games, or they're going to play a down team and beat them by 7. They're going to beat a team they're favored by 29.5 against and beat them by 7. That's sort of the way this kind of system unfolds. So, I don't know. It's going to get better because it can't get much worse than losing in front of, 2,800 people.
I was going to say 20 people.
Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know what Mario Cristobal does to these quarterbacks, the Mariopathy that is involved in this relationship. But I think it's Jaden Rashada from Northern California.
Yeah.
Travel across the country to play in this kind of, okay. All right. So that's all. Miami's going to be fine, but get used to this manner of football.
Great. All right. Let's go to Mario's former team. Your Oregon Ducks, 44-41. This is a wild freaking game, man.
Yes,
Holy cow. Oregon down 34-22 with about 6 minutes left. They scored 22 points in the span of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
First on a 1-yard touchdown pass to Cam McCormick. Then very quickly, a 50-yarder to Troy Franklin, a nice throw from Bo Nix. And then on a 27-yard pick six on the ensuing Washington State possession that gave them a 44-34 lead and a miraculous seeming front door cover.
Sorry, doggos. Yeah.
Gamblers in the streets, clanging pots and pans. I was out there. We're shooting off fireworks. Not so fast, my friend. Not so fast, my friend. Wazoo gets the ball back. There is no quit in this team. 7 plays, 79 yards. 49 seconds later, Nakia Watson leaps into the end zone to grab the backdoor cover. Wild finish here. Talk me through this game.
Very strange. As somebody personally invested in the outcome, Oregon was gashing Washington State repeatedly between the 10s, right? Right up until the 10-yard line or the red zone or whatever, and they really struggled to put the ball into the end zone in the first half. Just with opportunity after opportunity, Kenny Dillingham and the team did not execute anything successfully. Washington State, to their credit, stepped up, made plays in the red zone on defense. Cam Ward, I wouldn't say he's an excellent quarterback just because he wasn't going downfield successfully, really, but he is a playmaker.
Yeah,
in terms of his improvisation, in terms of his ability to keep a play alive, move the chains, he's really impressive. He is really, really quite impressive. Wazoo was not able to do much on the ground, much on defense. And as the game wore on, Oregon's doing they're trying to do what Georgia was successful in doing, just with better players. They rotate in a ton of guys on defense. And it seemed that Oregon had fresher legs in the second half on defense. They were making real stupid mistakes, trying to lose this game with hands to the face and, the targeting call. And they were bailing out Washington State far too often. Yeah. But that's what losing teams do, right? Washington State was in a really nice position to win this game. But sometimes it's not what you do, it's how you respond. And what Oregon was able to do on offense in responding to the mistakes they were making in the first half with what they were able to do in the second half, they sort of kept going at Wazoo. They called a better game in the red zone. They completed drives. Troy Franklin looks like he is one of the best receivers in the Pac-12. I know it's kind of an interesting stocked receiver conference with what's happening at USC, but he really stepped up, and he's going to be the go-to option for Bo Nix. And other than a pretty awful pick six from Bo Nix, he was terrific. He looked really comfortable. He made all of the right throws. He went downfield when it was appropriate. He hit guys on all three levels. He made plays with his legs. He is, we like to joke about good Bo and bad Bo, but that one pass was horrific. But otherwise, he was a really strong quarterback in a tough spot.
I was texting with our friend Tim Murray.
Yeah.
And I told him on that Bo Nix pass and this is true, I threw that exact pass when I was playing Madden 23 earlier in the day. Like, just didn't see him.
Yeah.
Floated it up to the running back, and boom, came back to bite him. I thought Bo Nix looked good. We mostly got good Bo Nix in this game, with the exception of bad Bo. Bad Bo comes out when you don't want him to. But
and I don't even know how much they called the same play twice.
Yeah.
And the Wazoo backer just sort of sat in the lane and saw the formation and saw how everything was unfolding and sat in the lane. And it was a great play by him.
I actually came away impressed by both teams.
Yeah,
I'm sure that we could nitpick, and of course, the people joking about cooging it, giving away the lead late for Washington State, and we could tell that joke if we want to, but I just think that this Washington State team, I, for one, was very much undervaluing the level of fight in this team, what they can do on defense. I mean, I know the score here isn't exactly indicative of any kind of defensive slugfest, but they can make plays on defense. Cam Ward, as he said, is a playmaker. They're going to give teams fits. I want to talk about USC next if we can move to USC here quickly, but I was thinking about Washington State in particular when I looked at the USC result here. 17-14 on the road in Corvallis. This is a 7-3 game. 7-3 in favor of Oregon State until the final quarter. USC needed a 21-yard touchdown pass to Jordan Addison with about a minute left to take the lead. This one was a weirdly defensive game. And USC continued doing what it's done all year, and that is getting interceptions. They picked off Chance Nolan 4 times in this game, which was ultimately the difference. USC quietly leads all of FBS with 11 interceptions. They've done it all season. Granted, buoyed a little bit by this game in 4 interceptions and 4 interceptions in the Rice game in week 1. But this is a defense that has created opportunities for a really good offense. On that front, this was an absolute clunker. This was an absolute clunker for that vaunted USC offense. Caleb Williams, you will note, last season, granted, freshman, still trying to figure things out. There were games last year where it was like, yep, Caleb Williams has a clunker in him. He's really good. He's really good.
Yeah, Baylor, Iowa State, yeah.
He is not above a 16 for 36 showing.
No.
Now, he had big play late, but I think if you're looking ahead, Utah can make him play this kind of game. Wazoo, more to my earlier point, Wazoo might be able to make him play this type of game. Even Notre Dame by the end of the season might be able to make him play that style of game where he can't fire on all cylinders, and USC needs to dig deep in order to win this one. So I want to credit USC for getting a tough win on the road. I also want to credit Oregon State for doing whatever it did to hold down a really good offense. I think we learned a lot about both teams in this game. USC wins, Oregon State covers, and a tough place to play, blah, blah, blah. But I think especially in this early juncture of like late September for us, as we look ahead, these are the types of games that we can harken back to and say, all right, we learned a little something about both teams in this one.
Yeah, that's true. If I had told you a team won a game close, not being able to get it together on offense, but rode a bunch of turnovers and key moments, and even though the quarterback was pretty down, they got a couple of runs here and there, and situationally they pulled it out, you'd be like, oh, good for Iowa, right? Good for Iowa. That's where USC was last night in Corvallis.
Oh, no. Don't say the I word.
That was a positively Ferencian win from USC. Sorry, that's exactly what it was. And win your clunkers. Win your clunkers. USC's turnover margin is absurd. And sometimes you can say, well, it's fool's gold, right? This isn't going to continue. The universe evens out fumbles and tipped balls and interceptions. USC players are in the right place on defense, the right place at the right time to pick off these poorly thrown Chance Nolan balls, right? Poor decisions, poorly thrown, right place, right time. You know I'm a big believer in the opportunity truck. And USC has done a good job on defense drafting off the opportunity truck. That is an important thing to do in year one. Once again, they won their clunker. But when Travis Dye, without his gloves, fumbles the ball on his own one, and Oregon State looks like they recover, but they don't, that's a bit of luck. Fumble recoveries, that ball's going to bounce wherever it's going to bounce. There's nothing skilled about recovering fumbles, right? So I am of the mind that USC is going to win a ton of games because I don't see a lot of teams that can beat USC on the schedule, maybe beyond Utah and whatever it is that UCLA decides to look like week to week. But man, was that game for the taking for the Beavs. The defense looked great. You were down on the USC offensive line ahead of the season, and we heard from a bunch of Trojan fans, but the PFF ratings say that USC is the highest graded PFF whatnot. They're the play-by-play data. USC's offensive line got overwhelmed. Like, Caleb Williams was the best offensive lineman for USC yesterday in the amount of times he had to escape pressure and being hit and rolling off of contact. And so, again, good for USC. Good, Jordan Addison came up big in a couple of moments with key catches and, down spots. But there is an element of fool's gold to this year's iteration of USC, but they won their clunker. And so I'm not going to fully criticize them because it's a tough place to win with an improved Beav team on the other side, desperate to give that game away.
Desperate to give that game away. All right. You mentioned Iowa. Let's shift over to the Big Ten. We'll get to Iowa in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan 34, Maryland 27.
Yeah.
First off, monster game for Blake Quorum. Just an absolute monster game. I'm sure he is on your dude list. I won't steal the thunder and talk.
No, he is.
Too much about it. 243 yards on 30 carries and 2 touchdowns. Maryland had no answer, not just for him, but for the Michigan run blocking scheme. Whatever they were doing, the holes were there. And Blake Quorum had the patience, had the vision, obviously had the speed and strength to get through. So monster game for him. A really good job by the Michigan team just opening up those holes. But this is a much better game than expected.
Yeah.
This is a much better. Point spread was 17 here. And for a good chunk of this game, it felt like Maryland, it was there. It was a stone's throw away. If they could just make a few more plays. With about 9 minutes left, this was a 5-point game here. But Maryland, again, we talked about this in the preseason a lot. Maryland is making strides. Maryland feels the next step in its evolution is to knock off one of the top 4 in the Big Ten East. That's just where they're at.
Hold on. Who are the big 4 in the Big Ten East to you?
Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State.
All right. I hear a big 3 after yesterday. Continue.
Fair enough. And we'll get to Michigan State.
Okay.
But that is the stated goal. For this Maryland squad. 2 turnovers in particular killed them. They had one on the opening kickoff. Michigan cashed that in almost immediately for a quick touchdown. And then they had another one down the stretch with about 6 minutes left. Maryland's driving. Talia throws a pick down the right sideline.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland was in this game. They were in this game.
Oh, totally.
This one looked like progress to me. So even if you're a Maryland fan, you're disappointed you didn't win. But the fact that they went to Michigan and were within 7 of the Wolverines, within 5 late, that's big time progress. So they can build from this. The Michigan State game probably there for the taking after what we've seen so far from Sparty. But on the Maryland side, you were close. This is definite progress. On the Michigan side, the run blocking's there. The offensive line's good. They can clearly run the football. The J.J. McCarthy thing's interesting, though. It is a little bit interesting. I have continue. There's a little bit of Tecmo Super Bowl in his style of play where he's just a lot of running backwards, waiting for guys to get open, maybe make a dash for it, make a break for it.
Mm-hmm.
That'll work against Maryland. I don't know if it works next week against Iowa.
Right.
Against Penn State. Certainly not against Ohio State. Like, they've got to work that part of his game out.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to get Donovan Smith back healthy as well. But they got to work that part of his game out so that he is not putting them in 3rd and long situations, 2nd and long situations by trying too hard to make a play.
Yeah. No, there are certain ways in which a game can unfold where you're like, oh man, this team might just have it today. They might just upset this team. Everything's clicking. And sometimes there are games where teams score 21, 28 points on pick sixes and freak cover busts. And you're like, well, they're not really doing anything consistently well. They're getting these like freak plays. And the way that game unfolded to me was Michigan was like 2.5 plays away from losing this game. They get the crazy opening kickoff, bounce off the player, and then they have the opening. He throws it to one of the tight ends. Was it Schoonmaker? Who caught the Schoonmaker?
I believe so, yeah.
The opening, that opening touchdown was great. And then Maryland intercepts the ball, but the guy's foot is out of bounds right at the goal line later on in the game. There are certain things that, like, you're getting 240 how many yards from Blake Quorum and barely beating Maryland at home. That to me is worrisome. That like J.J. McCarthy isn't necessarily stepping into the pocket and launching the ball successfully downfield consistently, that he has to scramble and wait and like that'll work again, to your point, that'll work against Maryland. don't know how many of the better teams in the Big Ten that's working against. If that sort of improvisation is what's needed at times to barely beat Maryland. And so win your clunkers, as always, but I think we're right to hold Michigan as a reigning champion and playoff team to a high standard of, if you're going to this new guy and you're going to play precisely nobody in September, Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, you better be ready to dominate a team like Maryland at home if we are going to believe in you. And so
and look,
that's worrisome.
J.J. McCarthy's playmaking is also undeniable. We saw it in this game. He is able to make plays with his legs, but the thing where he's running backwards and just not getting rid of the football, trying to make a play, they're going to have to weed that stuff out. Because against the better teams, it's just not going to work. It's going to put them behind the chains. And that is how Iowa wins games, I should point out. They win games with field position and with dumb turnovers and with doing just enough to score 3 points every so often off a bad play. That is how teams in the Big Ten win, not just Iowa. So,
but still probably better than 114 quarterbacks.
Oh,
in this country. So, to be
and
clear,
he's young, right?
He's young.
He will have an opportunity to mature and get better as the season progresses.
And this was his first Big Ten game as a starter.
Yeah.
Like we should cut him some slack at the same time that he was not prepared with Hawaii, Colorado State, UConn to sort of like, oh, they're falling into this type of quarters look. Oh, they're blitzing from this angle. Oh, they're taking away my hot read here. But let's hope for improvement.
Let's hope for improvement.
For
By the
all
way,
around on that offense,
I said Donovan Smith. I meant Donovan Edwards.
Yes.
Donovan Edwards, who's been out. CJ Stokes, I believe, got one carry and fumbled it in this game as potentially the complement to Blake Quorum. They kind of went away from that play pretty quick.
Yeah.
All right. Elsewhere in the Big Ten, let's rattle through some conferences here. Ohio State by 31.
Oh, man.
Just drilled Wisconsin.
And not even that close.
Not even that close. They were without JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Both starting cornerbacks, were out, but it still was a hot knife through butter, 52-21. We had Minnesota.
Guess who just got murdered?
Just destroyed Michigan State, 34-7. This one was never close either. Tanner Morgan had as many touchdowns, 3, as incompletions. 240 on the ground for the Gophers. Meanwhile, Michigan State just looked bad on offense. Looked bad. Minnesota, for their part, probably a very, very strong case in light of Week 4 as the best team in the Big Ten West, which we've always acknowledged is a possibility. We just needed to see it. And certainly needed to see the competition. We may be at that juncture. You and I spoke this morning on Slack. You're ready for Noah Kim.
I mean, ready for something new with Michigan State. Yeah. I mean, he was one, I think he threw the garbage time touchdown for the Spartans late. I'm going to speak for myself. I'm not going to say we, but I perennially, I think, underrate Minnesota and what their potential is. I have no idea what Michigan State is or isn't at this point. I kind of have a good idea of what they're not, but yeah, year in and year out, maybe it's because of the bad Tanner Morgan, maybe it's because of the COVID season, maybe it's because of some sort of down offensive stretches, and for whatever reason, PJ Fleck and Kirk Shiraka are just the duo of duos.
Do I need to put it back on the board?
Kirk Shiraka.
Kirk Shiraka.
Thank you. That was quick. Good job. No, long-term, I have no idea. Or long-term this season, I have no idea what to make of Michigan State beyond a lot of worry. A lot of worry because between what they showed last week and what they showed this week, they're an inspiration to teams. Teams look at the Spartans across the field. They look at that green, and the green is a green light. They are, what's the word I'm looking for? They're a muse, Ty, to offenses and defenses. You can't spell muse without MSU, Ty.
Are you saying?
Flop, flop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is.
It's rough. 10 of 12 was what Minnesota was on third downs. 10 of 12? This makes me worried that Washington's not that good because they allowed so many points from Michigan State. I know that was also closer than it actually was. But, yeah, I was into Michigan State more than I probably should have been heading into the season, even though last year I thought was a little bit of fool's gold with the Indiana and Nebraska games and not playing Kenny Pickett in the bowl game. But Damn, I don't know where you go. Like in late September, and this is what you're looking like. I don't know how much you can fix in season. We'll see.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I could think of a number of like Power 5 teams that, from a betting standpoint, we knew were fool's gold going into week 5.
Yeah.
Usually that stuff gets sorted out by Vegas by week 3. But this is one that obviously Minnesota's a lot better. Michigan State's got work to do. Penn State wins by 19 over Central Michigan. Central Michigan hung around enough to cover the 28-point spread. Penn State shut them down after pretty much halftime. Cincinnati wins by 21, gives Indiana their first loss. They had a 28-point second quarter, never relinquished the lead. Purdue, very close, knocks off Florida Atlantic 28-26. Northwestern goes down against Miami, Ohio. Illinois won earlier in the week 31-0 over Chattanooga. And then that brings us to Iowa-Rutgers, the vaunted matchup that everybody talked about, couldn't get enough of. 27-10. The good news is the overhit. The bad news is the Iowa offense again scored 13 points on their own to knock off Rutgers here?
Correct. Yeah, defense outscored the offense.
Brutal. Now we've got Iowa hosting Michigan next week, which I don't know what to make of that game for a number of different reasons that we will discuss when we do the recap, or excuse me, the preview show on Thursday. But 27-10.
Yeah, among those games, Ben Bryant might be full on good for Cincinnati. First year starter. He and I think it was Tyler Scott had a really nice connection. They can't really run the ball, which is a bummer without Jerome Ford. But yeah, I think Indiana will be okay, but I think this is just the Hoosier experience. Otherwise, in the Big Ten, Austin Burton got the start because Aiden O'Connell was out with, I think it was a rib injury, which I've never had I have torn cartilage. I haven't broken a rib. It sounds like a complete and utter human nightmare to exist with rib injuries.
I broke 3 ribs and tried to play through it.
Oh!
And I went 3 for 4 in that. I had a very good baseball game.
Oh, so not a full sport, but yeah.
Correct. But I was in horrible pain. Could not take a deep breath. It was definitely not the right decision at the time. I didn't know any better, but really, really tough. I can't imagine what it's like to play football through a rib injury.
Yeah. So Austin Burton, I think, transferred in from UCLA. Hope it works out for Purdue, and Aiden O'Connell heals up quickly because he and Charlie Jones are exceedingly fun to watch. But yeah, a close win against FAU, but N'Kosi Perry, true freshman for FAU. He'll be there another 11 years. No, nice win for Purdue, who actually ran the ball well, which has not necessarily been a strength of the Boilers. Did so in West Lafayette. Otherwise, I didn't watch any of the Penn State games, so I'll take your word for it. It looked like Parker Washington made plays, which is nice. But yeah, it looked like Penn State kind of jumped out to it and then just sort of coasted. I watched a good chunk of the Wisconsin-Ohio State game. Those receivers are great. They're so good. The running backs are so good. CJ Stroud seems so comfortable, and Wisconsin is just another team. Sorry. They were up 21-7 in the Big Ten championship game in 2019. And since then, nothing. Nothing. Right. And Illinois. Let's mention Illinois. Taking care of business against Chatty Noogs. Chase Brown, quietly one of the better running backs in the country, probably.
TCB. All right. Big 12. Baylor 31, Iowa State 24. Bears finally got something out of their offense, Dan.
Yes. Big plays.
Finally got something out of their offense. It was, I think, easily the best game this season for Blake Shapen, who looked very confident running things. Notably, this was not the pickleball offense that we have mused about here.
Did a good
really
job.
For either team. Neither team was playing pickleball here, but a fair amount of chunk plays made this, I thought, a really entertaining watch. I watched a good portion of this game. Baylor's defense remains solid. That is the bedrock for this team. It probably always will be that way under Dave Aranda. They seem to generate a fair amount of pressure on Hunter Deckers. They forced 2 picks. They were really tough against the run. Iowa State averaged something like 2.5 per carry. So the combination of all of those factors together, just playing really, really sound football on the road, the defense stepping up when they had to. I thought, all things considered, this was a pretty good showing for both teams, but Baylor just had its act together much, much more and looked like a more complete product at this point in the season.
Yeah, I liked watching Blake Shapen. He was good in play action. He found open dudes. Some like no-brainer throws he made, right? That's not always the case with everybody. You look at like the all-22 angle and like this guy was running wide open. It's supposed to be his second read. Blake Shapen was impressive. He seemed cool, calm, and collected against a good Iowa State defense, it should be noted.
Yeah,
cool to
good.
see. You had always mentioned with Baylor, like, who's that next guy? Who's the next Abram Smith? Who's the next whoever? And Gavin Holmes was that guy yesterday. Let's hope he is one of many if you're a Baylor fan. His name sort of makes him sound like a problematic influencer. Not my problem. Not my problem. Good for Baylor. Get the job done in a close game against a tough team as they try to not rebuild, but reload from a pretty impressive 2021.
Yeah. And Richard Reese, too.
Continues to be strong.
Just gave, not like a monster statistical performance, but as a freshman to get in there and get some yards on the ground, he did a good job. So nice win for Baylor on the road. We had Kansas moving to 4-0. We had TCU winning the skillet over SMU, and we had West Virginia winning their game. Very sloppy. Oh my God, that game was so sloppy. I watched every second of it. My eyes were ready to bleed. 33-10 over Virginia Tech. Thoughts on these games, Dan?
Very cool to see Max Duggan, who did not win the starting job this year. Chandler Morris did, but he's been out. Look very sharp and decisive, spread the ball around. TCU ran the hell out of the ball against SMU. A lot of emotion in this one, for obvious reasons, with Sonny Dykes leaving SMU to go essentially a few miles away for a rival to take over that program. And if TCU, especially on defense, can once again get their act together, it's not going to happen this year. But we talked about this in the Big 12, like who steps into the void of Oklahoma as like the power in that conference. And we agreed that TCU is one of the like clear options at the top at their best. And I think they can be pretty interesting. So very cool to see them immediately turn things around in the skillet matchup. Elsewhere in the Big 12, you know who CJ Donaldson is? CJ Donaldson would be an absolute pleasure to root for if he were on your team. Well, doesn't he he's like, I am so happy. And he's a freshman. And I know this is a Virginia Tech team that's somewhat down, but like West Virginia taking care of business comfortably in that game was very cool to see because I just like watching CJ Donaldson, excuse me. And then Kansas, like we're going to have a ranked conversation at a certain point. We're going to have a Jalen Daniels and where does he rank in the Big 12 quarterback hierarchy? Where does he rank in the terms of just like fun players to watch? Not must-see TV quite yet because it's still Duke. But these weren't games Kansas was winning traditionally these past few years.
No, I mean...
And he's bombing it downfield.
He's bombing it downfield. Over 400 total yards, 5 total touchdowns for Jalen Daniels. Kansas was also very good in the red zone. I sure it was against Duke, but Duke's a 3-1 team, and Duke's been okay on defense.
Yeah.
Duke's been okay on defense, right? It's not Alabama, it's not Georgia, but Duke's been okay. And again, these are not the games that Kansas would typically win.
Right.
They were good in the red zone. They got 3 touchdowns on 4 trips into the red zone. The offensive line has played well all season.
Yeah.
Again, granted, I'm blame Bama.
But this is also... we talk about Michigan and holding them to a certain standard that they're setting for themselves. The standard that Kansas has set for themselves this past few years doesn't exist. And now
there's no standard.
They're exceeding whatever tiny bar they set by leaps and bounds. It's one of the actual joys of college football fandom, not involving your own team, is to see dramatic improvement. And it's an incredible story.
They gave up their first sack of the year yesterday.
Cool.
First sack of the year. So credit to Kansas, Lance Leipold moving to 4-0. Let's rattle off some other matchups here in the SEC. Auburn wins in overtime over Mizzou. We'll come back to this one in a second. Georgia 39, Kent State 22. Kent State doing a little bit more work than I expected.
Yeah.
Brock Bowers also leading Georgia in rushing yards. 2 carries, 2 touchdowns, 77 yards, one of which went for 75. But 3 turnovers for Georgia that they're going to want to clean up. Bama wins by 52 over Vandy. They cover the spread. Kentucky 31, NIU 23. Tied at half, but Kentucky pulled away in the third and fourth quarters. Ole Miss 35, Tulsa 27. This game wasn't really in doubt, even though it does look close. We had Mississippi State winning big over Bowling Green. LSU wins 38-zip over New Mexico, and South Carolina by 36 over Charlotte, Dan.
Didn't watch South Carolina, Charlotte. Didn't watch LSU, New Mexico. Only watched a bit of Mississippi State, Bowling Green, because that was pretty out of hand early on. Watched more than I would have liked to of Auburn, Mizzou, and that's to say I didn't watch much of it, but that's already too much of this matchup. Obviously watched a good deal of Florida, Tennessee, which we talked about. Watched a good deal of A&M, Arkansas, which I know you want to talk about. Didn't watch any of Bama, Vandy as soon as I saw that getting out of control. Saw the highlights of Georgia, Kent State, but didn't watch a lot of that. Of these games, Texas A&M, Arkansas, always weird, never fails to be weird.
I was saving it. I was saving the score.
Okay.
For this moment. We're gonna get people who write in and say, you didn't talk about this game until an hour. I apologize.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
A lot going on. Sorry.
A lot going on. But we do need to take a few minutes and talk about Texas A&M and Arkansas. Here is why I did not include it in that first chunk. This game went exactly the way you and I thought. This game went exactly the way Vegas thought. The point spread was 2 in favor of Texas A&M. It was exactly according to the script. So in terms of things that could have happened in college football week 4 that would upset the balance of the force, that would change the storylines and the narratives and really get people talking, I don't know if this game so much falls into that category. This game was kind of exactly as expected on many fronts. The Texas A&M offense leaves a lot to be desired, right? A lot to be desired. Devin A-Chain, thank you for playing.
Oh, my God.
Thank you for playing. He's very good.
This was
very good.
It was actually kind of a squat on your back Saturday, right?
A little bit.
A lot of teams were like, we're going to ride that dude for better or worse and see what happens. And that's what Texas A&M did with Devin A-Chain. Smartly.
That's what they did smartly. What happened in this game is Arkansas got off to a quick lead, quick 14-0 lead, and then A&M sat on them. A&M did not let much happen beyond that. Late touchdown, but in between, A&M did what it needed to do. Got those 23 points. I thought in particular, they were able to either confuse or pressure KJ Jefferson into making inaccurate throws. I saw a lot of inaccurate throws from him in a way that I'm not used to seeing.
Yeah.
And I thought just that subtlety with however they were doing it changed the outcome of this game. KJ did not look as comfortable as I'm used to seeing him look. And I thought that played a pretty outsized impact, honestly, on this one. It's not the kind of thing that's necessarily going to show up in the stat line or the box score, even a lot of the game recaps. But he didn't feel as comfortable, as dynamic in this game, probably because A&M has a good defense. But that just tweak, whatever they did, that was how they won this one.
Yeah, A&M looked a lot better up front later on in the game, making more plays, especially with the younger guys. Wouldn't hate if every game broadcast featured a slightly deflated-looking John Daly somewhere in the rafters.
With the pig's hat on?
With the pig's hat. I mean, he's a joy to look at visually. He's like a cartoon character taking in Arkansas games. But I think we can't underestimate the loss of a magnificent connection like what KJ Jefferson had with Treylon Burks last year. A thing like that where you're like, who's going to be this year's Treylon Burks? Like, that almost feels disingenuous with how strong the two of them were together last year. And I know that, bring in transfers and who's, the next guy up, but not a lot of teams, not a lot of programs just have that next guy up who steps in without missing a beat. So just like you predicted in the preview, you were like, watch out for KJ Jefferson fumbling near the end zone and Texas A&M handing it off to a dude on the recovery and having him sprint down the sideline and that be responsible for a third of A&M's points in a winning effort. It's a freak way to win the game, but that's what this game is every year. It's a game that comes down to a freak way to win. And so, yeah, Devin A-Chain, bummed to see Aniyah Smith. Hopefully his injury is not as bad as it appeared at the time of recording, but it does not look good for Aniyah Smith. It's again coming down to, I have no investment either way in A&M football, but if you're an A&M fan watching Max Johnson drop back slowly, every down must be heartbreaking in its own way. He had a long scramble for a first down that reminded me of like what a quarterback who was cajoled out of retirement would look like when he's like a McCown brother sprinting down the sideline at 41 for a terrible Jets team.
He looks like Brad Johnson, his father.
Correct. Yes. I remember I have like visuals of my dad, like the last time I saw my dad sprint as an adult, because he doesn't do that and hasn't for a long time. Like, that's kind of what Max Johnson is, like a 20-year-old looks like running. So it's going to be a trying season for Texas A&M. But once again, they won a clunker in a very emotional spot that they don't always win. So good for A&M as they move forward, and defense got healthier and just guys back from suspension and stuff. So playmakers on defense and Devin A-Chain is not the worst combination heading against some tough teams.
Just very quickly, Mizzou fumbled the ball out of the end zone in overtime.
Oh, Nathaniel Pete, yeah.
Yeah, fumbled the ball out of the end zone. That's how they lost.
Missed a kick to win it at the end, a very makeable kick, and we're running into the end zone to win that game. That game featured many punts. And we were even talking, like, should we prepare a video just in case Brian Harsing has let go after losing the Mizzou game in this fashion? And then they win the game.
Yeah.
And now Auburn money is sitting around saying to themselves, on to next week. We push it back. Yeah.
Next week. All right. ACC Notre Dame wins 45-32 over North Carolina. Syracuse eked one out over Virginia 22-20. We had UCF knocking off Georgia Tech 27-10. We had Pitt 45-24 over Rhode Island. Notably, Pitt's kicker recovered one of those cool onside kicks that you and I talked about in the Fantasy Things draft, where the kicker just like doink, kicks it straight and recovers his own thing, which was kind of neat. But
did you see who Rhode Island's quarterback is? Did you happen to catch this? It's like the starting quarterback for the still in college All-Stars, Kasim Hill.
Yeah.
He of Maryland and Tennessee fame. He's still going.
Still there
At Rhode Island.
Let me finish this out quick. We had Louisville winning big. We had Florida State beating Boston College, and NC State big over UConn, Dan.
Yes, glad to see Jordan Travis's health was in order enough to look very strong against Boston College, who looks to be very bad.
Very bad.
Boston College does not look competitive. They didn't score in the first half. Florida State controlled this one from whistle to whistle. Georgia Tech, speaking of very bad.
Oh my gosh. Fumbles, penalties. Yeah, not good.
Yeah. Louisville looking strong, especially. I mean, it was a balanced game. Malik Cunningham. It's a squad on your back Saturday. South Florida's not that good. You mentioned Pitt, NC State comfortably. Syracuse, one of your picks, which still a strong pick. I don't hate the pick. Defense will win them more games. Offensive line, I don't love right now for Syracuse. But if you're winning games without a great offensive line, that's okay.
May need to back off the Garrett Shredder nickname.
Okay. He needs to earn it more in your eyes.
Yeah. Cuse needed 5 field goals in this game, and they turned the ball over 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of drops. It was very sloppy. Extremely sloppy game. 24 total penalties. There were 2 turnovers for UVA. There were about 85 replay reviews in this game, which was maddening. But the unique, I think, takeaway from this game is that regardless of which side of the fence you're on, whether it's Cuse or UVA, you came away from this game feeling like you could have won by 3 scores.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. Like, both teams had a lot that they left on the bone there, which was really maddening. Let's talk about Notre Dame UNC really quickly.
Let's.
Gene Chizik got carved up by Drew Pyne.
Is that bad? I feel like that's bad.
That's bad. That is bad. Notre Dame's offense racked up 45 points, close to 600 yards total offense. They had a ton of confidence. You could see it going through this one here. It was a unit that really needed it. So from that standpoint, this is good on the Notre Dame side. The line continued to improve. They dominated North Carolina. They dominated them. They opened up the ground game. Audric Estime, Chris Tyree, Logan Diggs, all told close to 300 yards on the ground. And Drew Pyne with a clean game. 3 touchdowns, close to 300 yards through the air. So Notre Dame did anything it wanted on offense here. This is what sucks, though, for North Carolina. The part that sucks for North Carolina is that their offense is actually quite good, at least through the air. They're quite good.
Part of it.
Quite good.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a half team, basically.
Quarter team.
Very good. It's a quarter team. Yeah. It's a quarter team. It's going to be a quarter team thing all year where the passing attack is constantly trying to keep up with a non-existent rushing attack and a really bad defense. So they're going to Drake May is going to put up wonderful numbers this season that are going to be, unfortunately, very hollow because they can't stop anyone and they can't run the ball to save their life.
Yeah. I'm going to say what I'm going to say right now what I think people will say in a year and a half to 2 years, and that's that the Mac Brown, North Carolina program is a failed state. Sorry. It is. And if your head coach, who recruits well, brings in 2 disappointing defensive coordinators in 4 years and is now in his second plus year of losing the trenches on both sides and not being able to defend teams at all with top 15, top 20 type recruiting classes in a down ACC, maybe Mac Brown is just there to golf. Like, maybe he was hired because administrators and boosters, like, I'm not saying Mac Brown took the job to golf. I'm saying North Carolina hired him because they like Mac Brown. And then Mac Brown hires assistants because he likes them, not because they're going to win a bunch of games. And so Drake May's really good.
Yeah.
The offensive skill talent that's been there has been really good. But again, if we're in year 4, sorry, we can
there to golf. Oh no.
We can smash cut forward to 2024 and be like, well, I guess it didn't work out for Mac Brown in North Carolina. Or we can just have that conversation now. Yeah. Because if Drew Pyne, these are your words, if Drew Pyne is carving you up in year 4, you have failed. And Drew Pyne is a backup quarterback. I have nothing against Drew Pyne. I hope he continues to improve. He improved in the second half against Cal. He looked strong. He's just going to lock in on Michael Mayer. Why wouldn't you? Gene Chizik had one job. Take away Michael Mayer. Get after the quarterback a little bit and confuse a shorter quarterback who has trouble going through progressions. At home, right? This game was in Chapel Hill?
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. 4 years in. 3 top 15-ish recruiting classes. 2 disappointing defensive coordinators. Sorry. Again, we can sim ahead to 2024 to have this conversation. We can just have this conversation now and move forward. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. Let's go over to the Pac-12. Just 4 other games here to mention very quickly. Utah wins and covers, thank you, over Arizona State 34-13. Washington wins 40-22 over Stanford. UCLA wins by 28 over Colorado. And Cal scoring 49.
Dude. Jay Knott, former Oregon commit at running back. 274 yards for Cal as they poured it on the Arizona defense. Yeah. Sort of an upright running style. I know you like specific details like that. But fast, gets after it, and Cal made the adjustment after North Dakota State, by the way, carved up Arizona. In a losing effort last week, Cal was like, screw it. We're down 21-7. Just give the ball to Jay Knott and see what happens. And then they rattled off all of the points. So
49-31. They win. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And finally, James Madison, the Maddies, baby.
Yeah, buddy.
Saving the best for last. I know they're not the Maddies, but I'm going to call them that. They're 3-0. App State led 28-3 in this freaking game with 6 minutes left in the second quarter. The Maddies scored 29 unanswered and grabbed a lead with about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They end up running out the clock. They win this damn game 32-28. What a freaking showing here by James Madison. As you said, as you rightly pointed out, they have never lost an FBS game. They're brand new to this level. To go to App State, to win this game, to be down by 25 points early and come back and win this game is a hell of a freaking showing. Really awesome to see them in the Sun Belt, which is not an easy conference. And they will have opportunities to lose. I'm sure they will at some point. But 32-28. Great win for James Madison. Congratulations.
Todd Centayo?
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. Transfer from both Temple and Colorado State. Very strong win. I mean, to be down, again, like you said, 28-3. I was going back and forth with this one and some other games. But it just seemed that App State took their foot off the gas at halftime. And I mean, look, the emotional letdown from weeks now of emotional games, going back to North Carolina A&M and Troy last week with the Hail Mary, and Troy bouncing back nicely, by the way.
Yeah.
James Madison, college football's one true Madison. Anywhere else in the Sun Belt, anywhere else in the Will Hall Bowl, Southern Miss, much healthier version than they were last year with a nice win against Tulane.
Yep. BYU beat Wyoming 38-24.
Yes.
Air Force big over Nevada. UTEP.
Mm-hmm.
We had a Boise fan call in about the UTEP game. 27-10. UTEP knocks off Boise. Boise fired Tim Plow
Yeah.
Their offensive
Blow,
coordinator.
yeah.
They're bringing in Dirk Cutter.
Dirk Cutter's back, which sounds like a decision made by somebody a lot older and richer than Andy Avalos. Yeah.
Yep.
So who he himself is probably not in the chilliest seat in Boise, with the expectations, and rightfully so, is it the Treasure Valley? I think it's the Treasure Valley. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Air Force comfortably against Nevada, which everybody's going to be comfortable against Nevada this season. San Diego State sneaking by, I think, a decent Toledo team. Not great, but decent. Colorado State losing to Sac State. Ty, can't do that. Can't lose to an FCS team by 31. Otherwise, New Mexico State, who's not that good, took it to Hawaii. San Jose State, a nice win against Western Michigan at home. Navy, by the way, won. How about that, Ty?
How about it,
You
baby?
didn't believe, rightfully so. But Navy takes down East Carolina at home. Mike Houston, East Carolina. Speaking of Houston, the Bayou Bucket.
How about it, baby?
Is Houston's, and Houston's alone. By the way, you know who's having a nice little season for Rice? Luke McCaffrey at wide receiver.
Yeah, baby.
Luke McCaffrey. UCF you mentioned in Georgia Tech. Memphis takes down North Texas. Temple shut out UMass. Stan Drayton, 500, 2-2.
Yep. Big game for EJ Warner.
Oh, is that true?
Big game for the Warner family. Well, EJ Warner gets his first win.
Okay.
And
That's something.
I forget where the other Warner is playing wide receiver, but he got some action as well.
I think it might be a Cade Warner. Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Cade Warner, yeah.
UNLV, Doug Brumfield. We mentioned UNLV on our Tuesday show last week, our midweek show, that UNLV, one of those teams that has been very much down and very much improving. And so for UNLV to beat the reigning Mountain West champs by 10 points, very impressive. Anywhere else, Ty, that you want to take this? Liberty over Akron?
No.
Any thoughts?
I don't.
Roadrunners of UTSA, big over Texas Southern. Yeah. By the way, Western Kentucky absolutely murdered FIU. Not like
them.
Stephen F. Austin Warner.
Them. Oh my gosh.
73-0 toppers. Stephen F. Austin beat something called Warner 98-0.
Was it Kurt Warner?
It was literally, speaking of Kurt Warner, he decided to take on a team himself.
Was it really 98-0?
It was 98-0. Not great.
That's excessive.
Monroe beat Lafayette.
Do you
Louisiana,
remember
Lafayette? Yeah.
Do you remember when did we even mention Fordham yet?
Fordham, Ohio.
Hold on.
11 miles of offense. Continue.
Just hold that thought. Do you remember the uproar it caused that one time Wisconsin scored 80 points, the 80 burger?
Uh-huh.
And there was so much conjecture around college football media.
What was that?
I forget who they beat, but they put up 80 points, and everyone was talking is this sportsmanship? Is this bad sportsmanship?
Right.
To put up 98 on a team, I feel crosses the line.
It probably does. Was the 80-point Wisconsin game where somebody asked Brett Bielema why he went for 2 up 46, and he was like, "That's what the card said." That's what the card said. I don't know. That's what the card said. I remember that. I don't know if that was the 80-point game, but there was something where Brett Bielema was up by a ton and went for 2. That's what the card said.
All right, tell me about Fordham. Do the Fordham thing.
Okay, so Fordham put the fear of God into Ohio on the road in Athens. It's okay. Fordham quarterback Tim DeMorat, 503 yards through the air, 14.4 per pass. Curtis Rourke had 537 himself. Fotis Kokosoulis, Fordham's number 1 receiver, 13 catches for 320.
Whoa.
Maybe he's the full dude alert. He's the full dude alert.
He's the only dude.
Georgetown got murdered. Lafayette embarrassed itself. I don't know if you want to get into Patriot League stuff, but I have some dudes if you want to get into dudes.
I would love to do the dude alert here for week 4. Who do we got?
Good receiver week, by the way. Speaking of our guy Fotis, how about Tyler Scott at Cincinnati? I mentioned he went off for $185. Michael Wilson at Stanford went for 176 in a losing effort against Washington, who looked good, not world beating, but Washington definitely looked good. We didn't really talk about that game. Both of those receivers for Florida, by the way, in addition to Anthony Richardson, but Ricky Pearsall and Justin Shorter in a losing effort.
Yeah.
I mentioned Jaden Ott, Blake Quorum, of course, with what he was able to do. Devin A-Chain, squat on your shoulder Saturday. Absolute dude for Texas A&M. How about Adrian Martinez? An all-purpose effort, total offensive effort from Adrian Martinez leading the way in that upset win. You know what? I'm going to say Bo friggin' Nix for Oregon was a full-on dude. How about that, Ty? Goes for 428, career high in a comeback winning effort. Cam Ward, also a dude. How about that? In that matchup, Braylon Allen in a losing effort. Oh, man. Poor Wisconsin fans, I guess. Braylon Allen goes for 100 and some odd yards, 160, 70 yards. So a bunch of dudes on both sides of the ball. I saw there was a kick six in the Montana State game, a safety set. The coach's son had a kick six and established himself as the all-time leading tackler for Montana State in the same game. So how about that guy? I should get his name, right? I think it's Hauk. Robbie Hauk. H-A-U-C-K. Yeah. Bobby Hauk is the legendary coach.
Must protect this Hauk.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
Well, as always, we appreciate
it's Montana. It's Montana, not Montana State. Sorry, Grizzlies. I apologize. I'm an idiot.
We apologize.
Yeah.
We apologize. Thank you to one and all for calling into the Reverbs, for hopping into our Discord over at verballers.com, for supporting the show as you always do. We are about 2 weeks out now from college football, the game show, the experience.
Yes.
The immersive college football experience that everybody on the Eastern Seaboard is talking about. It's going to be October the 7th. It's going to be in New York City at Chelsea Music Hall. Go to Solid Verbal Live, or what the hell, whatever it takes, smelltieshair.com. If you're ever so inclined, stop on it. We'd love to have you. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have not fully figured out the content yet. We're working on the content bit of this, but I'm very excited. Very excited. I know how you are with game shows. You're very good at game shows.
I'm already thinking about props and blindfolds and noise-canceling earphones and all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a blindfold on you and these noise-canceling earphones on you, and I'm going to say, name all of Kurt Warner's children in 5 seconds. And Cade plays for Kansas State, by the way.
Kansas State, thank you. I know 2 of them. I don't know if there are more. We can find out.
Yeah. Name as many Temple players as you can in 12 seconds. Oh, my God. Oh, the guy. Riddick. Yeah. Hassan. Wasn't he playing at Temple?
Hassan Riddick? Yeah.
Okay. That's all.
I forget his name. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you to one and all for bearing with us here. Longer than usual show, but a lot more action than usual in week 4. So much to discuss here. We will be back on our regular Wednesday show to break down more of this. Honestly, we couldn't get through all of it and get you set for week 5 ahead. Thanks as always. Stay solid.
Peace.